The NFL has suddenly stopped blitzing Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers are having one of their worst seasons in years. The offense can't execute, they can't win down the field, they're the slowest they've been in a long time, and defenses have adjusted. Through 9 weeks, they've been blitzed the least at just 14.5%, and in the weeks leading up to that, it was even lower at 11.2%. The Packers sitting at a disappointing 4-7, and their points per game has precipitously dropped a full touchdown from last season. There's frustration, there's discomfort, their offense has largely been a mess. That is, until a glimmer of hope sparked up in Week 10 against Dallas. Before we take a closer look at why defenses have stopped blitzing, I want to thank my partner Underdog Fantasy. They are a fantasy football app that I'm extremely excited to work with since I've been using them anyway for the last several years. Their games that I've been playing the most recently is their pick'em games, where you select 2 to 5 players and bet their over-under stat for that game. You pick 5 and win, that is 20 times your entry in just one night. You can choose any game you want as long as it's on the slate. I won all of Amon-Ra over 79.5 yards. He's the only guy in town I trust there. And I'll take the over on Kelsey too, because that man is the Charger killer. Make your 5 picks, bet $10 or whatever you want, and when all 5 hit, I win $200. As long as you choose any player in the slate, you can play whatever and whoever you want. It's easy, it's simple, you can win a lot of money. Use my promo code Rollins to get a match deposit of up to $100. So you put in $100, it instantly turns into $200. That's promo code Rollins. Thank you, Underdog. So basically, defenses have stopped blitzing Rodgers because nobody, wide receivers or offensive linemen, can win a one-on-one matchup. Sitting back and just rushing 4, a blitz is defined as 5 or more rushers, has shed a light on the Packers' primary problems. With no Davante Adams, defenses know they can match up one-on-one against each of the Packers' receivers, and each pass rusher can beat each of their O-linemen like a drum. Defenses match each receiver with a guy and don't blitz because they know they don't need to send extra pressure to get home when their rush just wins with 4. Until Christian Watson's breakout, Allen Lazard, Sammy Watkins, Romeo Doubs, Randall Cobb, Big Bob Tunyon, all of these guys struggle to beat any kind of coverage and especially struggle to get open deep. Because underneath space is so constricted without any deep threats, way tougher throws are required to actually complete passes, which Rodgers can make, but that requires tougher catches, which his receivers cannot. Because his receivers can't win, defenses have played the 4th most man coverage against him. Teams especially like cover 1 man, which has just 1 deep safety since they're not worried about getting beat deep, and against cover 1 man, Rodgers has just a 50% completion rate, which is good for 31st. What's important to note is how many kinds of cover 1 man a team can play, but what teams primarily use against the Packers' porous receivers and offensive line is cover 1 man rat, which keeps that extra defender in a zone to help out the underneath coverage since the front 4 can get home without blitzing. With the motion, Rodgers sees the Patriots are playing 1 high safety and are in man coverage, so he motions to a classic man beater, 2 clear outs outside with a now slant, which is just really a quick slant to beat the off-man coverage. However, since the Patriots aren't blitzing, they have a rat defender inside to help on anything underneath breaking, and despite the lack of safety help over the top due to just the 1 high safety, Cobb just can't win. Not only are they not talented enough to beat man coverage, they also just aren't good enough in their execution. There are a variety of tools teams can use to beat man coverage, even when you don't necessarily have the dudes to do it, but when things aren't coached up well enough, or guys are too young to know how to do it, those tools aren't gonna work. This is again just straight cover 1 man, but because they are not blitzing, they again use that extra defender as a rat, anticipating the Packers will run classic man beaters, where they rub the corner, so Sammy Watkins can break free outside with nobody guarding him. Problem is, Kendall Fuller knows he can play outside leverage since he has that rat help, plus he already has a pretty good idea of what's coming. Like I said, there are only so many man coverage beaters. At the snap, he jumps inside to cut off where Watkins is going and tries to beat him to the spot and jam him to blow the whole play up. Watkins wisely goes upfield away from his positioning. Both defenders kinda go with him, leaving Doubs wide open. But Rodgers has struggled this year playing off rhythm and dirts the throw. The unfortunate combination of him struggling off rhythm, having subpar receivers who can't win matchups, and getting tons of man coverage has reared its ugly head over and over, and been a major reason why they've struggled. Just like before, this is cover one man with a rat defender, and the Packers have a spacing concept with double ends to the right, so Rodgers reads the quicker concept first, then progresses on to the longer developing route second, but Dobbs can't create any separation on the spacing concept, and with the rat sitting in that middle zone, both ends are pretty much dead, and even if Rodgers held on a tick longer due to the rat holding this middle zone, there isn't any separation created anyway, and once again, he looks a little shaky off rhythm. Because Green Bay's receivers can't win these matchups, the Packers offense has to try and win with formation and scheme, but because defenses know they don't have any explosiveness at receiver, plus they have the added benefit of not having to blitz, they can use scheme too. Now Washington isn't using the non-blitzing defender as a rat, but have dropped him deep into a too-high safety shell. The Packers use 3 receivers to the left to try and overload the coverage to that side, but at the snap, Washington pushes that extra safety to the 3 receiver side to overload it themselves. This creates one-on-ones to the bottom of the screen, and back when the Packers had Devontae Adams and would use this very formation, well, this play would look very different because Aaron would throw it deep every single time. When the Packers see they're pushing coverage to the 3 receiver side, they try and play with matchups and put tight end Bob Tonyan as the ISO receiver, but he just isn't a separator and he can't create any movement or a window for Rodgers to throw to. Nobody can win one-on-one matchups, and it's a major problem, but as bad as the talent has been, the coaching has been even worse. These young receivers are constantly out of position, they have not been taught what to do correctly, and have put several real-life examples of poor preparation on film. Here the Packers have a sail concept, which attacks 3 levels of the defense. One receiver runs a vertical clear-out route, one runs intermediate, and the other runs to the flat. Against cover 2 zone like we have here, the flat defender either matches the intermediate sail route, exposing the flat, or jumps to the flat, exposing the sail. But when both receivers run the sail, there is nobody open. Since that's Rodgers' primary read, he can't get down to his check down and gets swallowed up into the Bills' defense. Because of the low quality of weapons, LaFleur is forced to overcomplicate the scheme. Rodgers said so himself. But by overcomplicating the scheme to try and make up for the severe lack of talent, LaFleur does things like run pin and pull play action drift concepts where he's so worried about pulling the linebackers out of the middle, he runs fake run concepts that have zero chance of creating any kind of protection for Rodgers, who just gets sacked immediately. Defenses know they don't have the talent at receiver, and also know they don't have the talent on the offensive line. Rodgers hasn't been pressured too much and hasn't taken too many sacks, but that's mostly because he's getting rid of the ball so quickly, knowing he has zero protection. He has to throw quickly because of the line, yes, but his receivers can't create any separation because they're not good, so the Packers have to overcomplicate their system, which actually ends up just overwhelming their receivers. Nothing has seemed to work in Green Bay. If Rodgers tries to hold on to the ball longer to let his receivers get some separation, he just gets sacked, even if he's not getting blitzed at all. Defenses know they don't need to bring an extra defender because they can just sit back against their subpar receivers who can't create separation, and the O-line can't block even just 4 rushers. But that all changed in Week 10 against Dallas. Green Bay used play action at nearly double their seasonal rate, and with Dallas blitzing more than 50% of the time, this created plenty of one-on-ones outside, which led to Christian Watson's 3-touchdown coming out party. With Dallas blitzing more than Rodgers has faced all season, naturally they had to play just 1 high safety and one-on-ones outside since they're sending that 5th rusher, but now the Packers have a guy who can beat those man-on-man matchups. When Dallas tried playing man coverage, Watson was just too fast, and even when they tried to pseudo-double him with the safety taking the crosser, he was still too fast across the field, and they couldn't keep up. This is exactly what Green Bay needed, a receiver who can't be guarded one-on-one. This will force teams, like we saw the Titans do in Week 11, to play way more zone coverage since they don't trust their defensive backs to lock up Watson one-on-one, and they barely blitzed, just 13% of the time, which is right around where it's been before. Watson not only presents a matchup that can't be matched by just 1 defender, but also creates a vertical speed element that they did not have before. This offense was constricted to just being horizontal instead of vertical due to their lack of speed, but now things can finally be opened up. You'll have to begin dropping a second safety deep to defend the outside vertical that teams are terrified of, and that'll open up more space in the run game with that second safety out of the box. There has been non-stop pain in Green Bay, Wisconsin, watching this 4-7 Packers team. But still, there is a glimmer of hope. Defenses knew they didn't have to blitz Rodgers whatsoever because of his lack of talent at receiver and woeful offensive line, but now, despite the loss to Tennessee, things are slowly starting to change. The Titans shifted their strategy to accommodate Watson's breakout, and in football, when you have something that forces the other team to change, you ultimately have the upper hand. It will, quite honestly, take a minor miracle for the Packers to make their way into the playoffs. But with the arrival of a new weapon, defense is becoming scared once again, and Aaron Rodgers still pretty much playing like Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay has a chance.